On a bright sunny day, an expensive car is quickly rushing to its destination along the street. A middle-aged man throws himself under a car, feigning a leg injury and screaming loudly. The car slams on the brakes and stops in front of a man, screaming that he was almost killed. After which the driver opens the window and tells the man that he didn't even hit him. The passenger window of the car rolls down and a sickly young man named Hank Daly takes a close look at the man lying on the ground. The man mentally tells himself that he has won the jackpot, because in front of him is the youngest gentleman of the Hong family, who has incredible wealth and is in very poor health, and tells him that it will cost at least 100,000 yuan to treat his leg. Hank asks his driver to give the simulator 100,000, and he, without hesitation, hands the man a suitcase, which makes the man very surprised at how easy it was for him to get the money out. The man thanks Hank, bowing cordially in front of the stationary car. However, in his mind, the man considers Hank a fool, promising to rob him again using the same method next time, thus earning himself a fortune. The swindler's thoughts are interrupted by Hank, who notices that everything is fine with his leg. He says that the man apparently does not understand the situation, because although he likes to spend money, he prefers to spend it through fair transactions, which means he will have to fulfill his part of the deal and get injured. The man's face crosses with fear, and he asks Hank what he means by these words. Instead of answering, Hank's driver takes out a bat and maims the crook by hitting his leg with force. The driver gets into the car and drives away, leaving the crippled crook lying on the ground. Driver asks Hank if it was worth 100,000, adding that even though it is an out-of-pocket expense, Hank should find an economist to invest in since he spends too much money every day. Hank tells the driver that he agrees with his thoughts, after which he briefly becomes lost in his thoughts. He explains that his body is very sick and weak, incapable of even normal walking without a crutch. But recently, he has become connected to a special system of extravagance that charges his body with energy by spending money. He adds that he needs to invest his parents' money into something profitable to rebuild his body stronger, but all his attempts have ended in failure. He tried to invest in a rental business, but the owner ran away with his money, and also to buy patents for inventions. But they did not bring him anything. Hank asks the driver to take him home, adding that some important guest is about to arrive at their house. Arriving home, Hank encounters a man and a girl sitting next to his parents, and his father introduces them as an old family friend and his daughter from the Tang family. Hank listens carefully to his father's story about how in the past their grandfathers solved business problems together face to face, and turns his gaze to the girl. The daughter of a family friend turns out to be a beautiful young woman, shyly looking around. Hank's mom introduces the young girl as Betty, and says that from now on, she is his bride. Hank asks his mother in surprise whether she is serious about this, to which she replies that Hank's grandfather, along with Grandpa Tang, arranged this engagement for Hank and Betty. Hank's mom adds that he and Betty will be fine, and can have a good baby for the Daly family, confusing Betty. Hank pauses, trying to comprehend the fact that he now suddenly has a fiancée. Betty examines Hank, mentally commenting that he looks relatively healthy and hopes that he won't die so soon after their engagement. 10 minutes ago, sitting in the car with her father, she told him that she did not want to marry Hank Daly, explaining that she had never seen him, and also that according to rumors, he was in extremely poor health and did nothing but wastes money. Betty's father answered her that their family is now in a bad situation, and he cannot fix it in any way, adding that the Daly family is very strong, and only they can help them. Betty says her father is using her like a commodity, asking her what she will do if her betrothed dies soon. Betty's father replies that he has a plan and will call off the engagement as soon as their financial problem is resolved. Betty tells herself that she has to pretend for the sake of her family and for the sake of her father, adding that she can somehow handle this guy. She lowers her gaze, expressing confidence that she can fool this simpleton with her charm. Hank tells his mother that he is not interested in Betty, after which he asks her for some money for investment, thinking that the investment might not pay off, but spending on a woman is generally pointless. Betty is annoyed that Hank publicly humiliated her and tells herself that she is not at all interested in him either. With these words, she gets up from the couch and politely addresses Hank's mother, saying that since the young master is not interested in her, then she should go home, thanking her for her hospitality. Hank and Betty's father grins and asks the young people not to make hasty conclusions. Hank's mom tells Hank with a sincere smile that she really likes Betty, adding that if he doesn't marry her, he won't get a penny from her. Hank, after thinking a little, agrees, reflecting that Betty is not as simple as she seems since she began to seduce him from the moment they met. Betty reflects that despite the fact that she doesn't know much about psychology, this knowledge was enough to force Hank's mother to put pressure on him. Mom tells Hank that in this case the issue is closed and gives him 300,000 yuan, saying that he would buy a gift for his fiancée with this money. A young couple gets into the car and remains awkwardly silent while the driver takes them to their desired location in the city. Hank contemplates punishing Betty for using his mother, and decides to buy her the most expensive piece of jewelry and see her reaction. The couple arrives at the market, where lively trade is in full swing and loud cries of sellers can be heard inviting buyers. Turning to Betty, the main character tells her that she can choose any gift she wants. Betty smiles sarcastically at Hank and says that she will definitely follow his recommendation, calling him master. After some time, she selects a modest gemstone, priced at 300 yuan, and tells Hank that she wants to buy it. Hank is surprised that she chose such a trifle, and mentally tells himself that his bride is some kind of utter fool. He buys the stone that Betty chose and asks her where she intends to go now, to which she replies that they need to get to the jade store. Once at the jade store, Hank realizes that Betty gave the stone to the store owner for an appraisal, and wonders what she is thinking, since, in his opinion, this broken stone cannot be something valuable. Taking a closer look at the stone, the merchant says in amazement that it is an incredible treasure, and offers her a price of 3 million yuan, begging Betty to sell it. Hank freezes in place in amazement, and Betty triumphantly tells the jeweler that she accepts his offer. Hank thinks about how a stone worth 300 yuan could turn out to be a real treasure that ultimately brought such a large income. Betty asks Hank what is on his mind, adding that she is very pleased with his gift. Hank realizes that his companion is incredibly good at making money out of thin air, which means she can help him. He tries to catch up with his betrothed and asks her to teach him her skills. He addresses Betty as his wife, to which she asks not to call her that, adding that Hank said an hour ago that he is not interested in her. Hank apologizes to Betty, saying it was just a joke, and offers her a deal where he will buy anything she can make a profit from. Hank says that he doesn't have the brains to make money, unlike Betty, so he is ready to buy everything that she considers promising, adding that the only condition is that he will pay for everything. Betty tells Hank that she doesn't quite understand him, but adds that she doesn't really care, but suddenly a noise nearby catches her attention. Turning towards the noise, our heroes see the hotel manager pushing ordinary residents away from the passage and asking them to go somewhere far away. The townspeople ask the manager what the hell he is doing, adding that they just came to look at the hotel, which is famous for its positive reviews. The manager tells the workers that they should know their place, since they earn mere pennies, and are also dirty workers, so they can scare away the visitors of their 3-star hotel. After which he invites them to go to a restaurant in the opposite direction. The workers get up and leave, saying that the manager is being too arrogant, to which the manager asks them to never come back. The townspeople approach the restaurant and decide to let go of the situation and just relax in a cozy place. Approaching the restaurant, they ask the hostess to prepare something tasty for them and ask if they serve some beer. The owner replies that unfortunately, the restaurant is officially closing as of this day, and the saddened workers ask her why this happened. The owner says that the reason for this is the 3-star hotel opposite, which buys all the best products for itself, which is why her small restaurant is out of business. The workers are annoyed and say that now the reason for the arrogance of the staff of that hotel has become clear to them, and they want them to go bankrupt. But they are aware that this is impossible, since business in that hotel is only going uphill. Suddenly, Hank's voice is heard behind them, who says that bankrupting this hotel is not an impossible task. Hank asks the surprised restaurant owner how much her establishment is worth, saying that he would like to buy it. The owner tells Hank that this place is already doomed and he is unlikely to earn anything. But if he really wants it, she will sell it for 1 million. Hank gives the owner 3 million, saying that 1 million will go towards buying the restaurant itself. The second million will go towards hiring expensive staff, and the rest should be spent on purchasing food for the next 10 days, where all food will be free. The hostess asks Hank in surprise about the last condition, to which he replies that everyone will be able to fill their stomach and eat as much as they want for 10 days. The landlady and the townspeople are delighted with Hank's enthusiasm and decide to call all their friends and relatives to ensure as many visitors as possible. Betty looks at Hank in surprise, telling him that she offered to buy the restaurant but not make it free, to which he replies that he is very wasteful. So, if he still loses money, he might lose a little more. These words surprise Betty, and she wonders what Hank is really planning to do. 3 days later, an incredible crowd of people gathers at the small restaurant, eager to get inside. There are shouts from the crowd that it is better to stand in line for several hours here, rather than go to that 3-star hotel where the managers are complete idiots. Meanwhile, at the 3-star hotel, the boss tells off the manager, ordering him to go outside and beg people to come in for lunch, adding that if he brings less than 3 people in today, he can pack his things and leave. After some time, a moonlit night comes, and Hank decides to retire to his room in his family's villa. He begins the meditation by initiating a body scan by the wasteful system. After looking at his status window, he decides to check the increases in his performance after such a productive day. noting that all indicators have increased by 40 units in total. He admits that he has never had such growth, believing that at this rate, he will be able to quickly return to normal life. The servants knock on Hank's door, and he asks what they need, to which they answer that Mrs. Betty is waiting for him downstairs. Having gone down to his betrothed, he affectionately addresses her, calling her little wife and asking why she wanted to see him. Betty again asks not to call her that, saying that she's going to school and asks Hank if he will go with her. Hank asks Betty why he needs to go to school, to which she looks at him in surprise, asking if she is the only one who remembers that he used to go there before his health problems appeared. Hank, after thinking a little, replies that he agrees to go to school, remembering that he did not quit going to school because of illness. Betty gets up and leaves, saying that she is going home, adding that the desserts were very tasty, and Hank notes that his future wife has a great body. Betty turns around and wishes Hank good night, and he promises himself that he will definitely restore his body for the sake of such a wonderful girl. The next day, Hank, dressed in a school uniform, arrives at school with his future wife. People around them look at them and gossip that they don't believe that such a beauty like Betty Tang is hanging out with such an idiot as Hank Daly. Suddenly, our hero's path is blocked by a bully, who says in surprise that stupid Hank really came to school after such a long absence. A bully named Michael glares at Hank, and his accomplices say that everyone knows that he likes Betty, adding that Hank has the audacity to come to school with her, crossing all boundaries. Hank asks Betty who this big guy is, to which she replies that he is an enemy of the family, being the eldest son of the Leah family. Michael looks menacingly at Betty, ordering her to come to him, adding that he has been waiting for her for a long time. However, Hank calmly stands in front of Betty, blocking Michael's path, further angering him. Michael angrily asks Hank if he's looking for another fight, and throws his fists at him, preparing to beat the main character. Hank notes that Michael moves at incredible speed, and just yesterday he would not have been able to evade. But today everything will be different. With that, Hank easily dodges Michael's attack, only causing him to cut through the air with his punch. At the same time as he dodges, Hank hits Michael on the legs with his cane, and he flies into the trash can, unable to control the inertia of his own body. Michael's accomplices immediately fly up to their leader and struggle to pull him out by grabbing his legs. Everyone notices Michael's shame and begins to discuss how pathetic Michael looks and how cool Hank is acting. Michael grabs Hank by the collar and pulls him towards him, threateningly asking him how he dares behave like this to him. However, Hank drops his cane and theatrically falls to the ground, starting to scream desperately, astonishing Michael. Betty holds Hank down and yells at Michael, asking him what the hell he's doing, calling him crazy, and adding that Hank has a weak body, to which Michael replies that he didn't do anything, and Hank was just pretending. Hank continues to put on a mask of theatrical despair and pain, but mentally notes that he is very surprised that Betty stood up for him. Other students begin to whisper that although Hank is a fool, his family is very influential, and if something happens to Hank, they will throw Michael's family out onto the street. Realizing that his affairs are bad, Michael quickly bows down to Hank and asks him how he is feeling, after which he offers to take him to the hospital. Moving a little closer to Hank, Michael whispers to him that he can clearly see that Hank is faking, but he will let it go just this once, and then he will repay him in kind. Hank painfully tells Betty that Michael continues to threaten him, and she says that she will call the teacher to investigate further. Michael immediately becomes submissive and gets on his knees, begging Betty not to do this, telling her that he will do anything to spare his life. He takes 500,000 yuan out of his pocket and tells Hank to take it for treatment, adding that he will also pay him moral compensation. With these words, he storms off, telling himself in a rage that he has never experienced greater shame in his life until that day. Hank happily says that this was the most unexpected 500,000 yuan in his life, and Betty asks him if he is okay. Hank asks Betty why she was worried about him, despite the fact that she understood that he was faking, to which Betty, blushing, replies that she was afraid that something bad would happen to him and her father would blame her for it. Standing up, she adds that she's still very grateful to Hank for standing up for her with Michael. Hank affectionately tells his fiancée that it is his responsibility as a future husband. Blushing again at Hank's words, Betty quietly calls him shameless and helps him up, heading to school. After school, Betty and Hank get into the car, and Betty asks the main character where they are going today. Hank replies that they made a lot of money by investing in that restaurant and suggests they go there where they can spend the money. Betty says that Hank is indeed a spendthrift, telling him that he won't make any money by constantly spending money, adding that sometimes to make a profit, you need to calm down and not look for good deals yourself. But just wait a little. Hank looks questioningly at his fiancée and asks her how such a move could work. Suddenly he notices something terrible and asks the driver to stop the car immediately. Getting out of the car, he sees a girl standing on the bridge who is obviously going to commit suicide, and shouts at her that she should not do this and tell her about what happened to her. The girl standing on the bridge does not hear the heroes and only quietly sings a melancholic song, looking at the setting sun. Hank and Betty begin to scream louder, and the girl turns her head in their direction, looking at them with tear-stained eyes. After some time, Betty and Hank persuade the girl to come down, and the main character asks her to tell her what happened, offering to help. Without waiting for an answer, he assumes that the culprit is probably some man and an unhappy love, to which Betty immediately aggressively replies that now is not the best time to talk nonsense. The girl says that everything is fine, thanking Betty and Hank for their kindness, sadly concluding that they nevertheless cannot help her, since she offended the person who drove her into a desperate situation. Betty says that this man is probably a notorious bastard, since he almost brought the girl to such an act, and asks her who it is, adding that they will definitely deal with him, to which the girl replies doomedly that they would only make him angry. Betty says that they can't pass by without helping the girl in tears and points at Hank, saying that this cripple may not have the ability to do anything serious, but he can at least piss him off. The girl says that her name is Isabel, and she is just a young unknown singer and the founder of a music group called Chasing Girls with 2 other singers. Betty and Hank are very surprised to hear that in front of them is not an ordinary girl, but a pop singer. Isabel continues the story, saying that she simply quarreled with her boss, and the 3 of them were pushed into the background. So even after 2 years, no one saw the songs they wrote. Isabel adds that because of the contract and the impossibility of terminating it, they cannot just up and leave, so they are forced to simply endure this attitude and sink to the financial bottom. After which Hank notices Betty's attentive gaze and asks her why she is like this, looks at him. Betty asks Hank if he has any ideas, to which he replies that he will definitely help Isabel but does not yet know how. Betty approaches him and quietly says that she has an idea, but she's not yet sure whether it will work, and Hank says that he is listening to her carefully. After some time of explanation, Hank remarks out loud that Betty smells incredibly good, to which Betty, blushing again, angrily asks him if he had been listening to her all this time. Hank replies that he listened to everything and tells Isabel that he can pay for her mother's treatment, but with one condition, which is that she and her team sing in a large stadium, which he's going to rent in 3 days, to which Isabel replies that she will definitely bring her group, and they will do everything in the best possible way. 3 days later, at the appointed time, a concert of the group Chasing Girls begins in a luxuriously equipped stadium. A huge number of spectators come to the stadium, who joyfully shout about their love for the members of this group. Our heroes take their seats, and Betty asks Hank if these people around are real spectators, to which Hank replies that these are people who owe money, and now they have come here to work off their debts, creating an atmosphere. Hank asks Betty if she likes being here, to which she replies that she doesn't really like noise, since she has been quiet all her life. Meanwhile, the girls are finishing the final preparations for the concert and telling each other that this is their first live performance, which means they must give it their all. Having said that today they will show what kind of stuff the group Chasing Girls is made of, the girls begin the concert, igniting the crowd with their music and vocals. Spectators note that they used to buy studio recordings of songs by other artists, but they like this concert much more. People around also became interested in what was happening, and began to flock to the entrance, noticing that admission to the concert was free. Everyone, without exception, notes that this group is very good, asking for its name and inviting their friends to the concert. The next day, even more people come to the band's repeat concert, filling the entire stadium to capacity. Charged with the energy of the group, Betty, who previously claimed that she was a quiet person, begins to sing along with the rest of the audience, pleasantly surprising Hank. A few days later, at a music company meeting, Isabel discusses how much attention the group has attracted. The studio boss listens irritably to these reports and tells his assistant to call the right people and bring them to him. In the evening, when Isabel's group finish their next concert, they joyfully greet them backstage. They simultaneously bow to the heroes as a sign of gratitude, to which Betty says that this is unnecessary, adding that she is now their fan. Just like them, I bow to you, dear YouTube viewer, for your comment, like, and subscription. I will appreciate, thank you. Have a nice viewing. Hank adds that they are now so popular on the internet that they will be considered superstars when they return to the company. And Betty says that they no longer have to worry about getting kicked out or being left behind. The girls admit that they do not have the slightest desire to return to the company, expressing confidence that the boss will continue to bully them. Isabel asks Hank if he can help them one more time, adding that they want to join their company as singers, but Hank sadly replies that his company is not in the entertainment industry. Betty says that the issue with the entertainment industry can be solved by buying a place, but in her opinion, the main problem will be Isabel's current contract and the cost of terminating it. Isabel says that the price for terminating the contract is 30 million yuan. Hank understands that with such expenses, he can get a lot of system experience points. But this is such a large amount that he couldn't even ask his parents, so all he can do is sell the restaurant. The next morning, Hank and his fiancée arrive at the hotel to carefully consider their future options. Betty asks Hank if he really wants to sell this restaurant to a 3-star, to which he replies that he doesn't care how much money he makes from it, since he still won't be able to bring in more money than this group, adding that the hotel has been suffering losses for a long time, and the purchase of such a restaurant could bring them back into operation. The hotel owner is angrily surprised that Hank wants to sell them this restaurant, adding that because of him and this restaurant they almost went bankrupt, and investors withdrew their investments, after which he says that they do not have the money to buy the restaurant, but if Hank pays them $3 million he can buy this hotel. After some time, Hank sits in the manager's chair and says that he did not expect that while trying to sell the restaurant he would somehow acquire the hotel, to which Betty says that Hank bought it without even thinking. Their discussion is interrupted by a girl who greets Hank, calling him boss, and Hank asks her who she is. The girl introduces herself as Luo, saying that she is the hotel's secretary, adding that he is now her boss, and she will report to him about the financial situation of the establishment. After studying the reports, Hank realizes that this establishment has already lost $50 million, after which he says that now it became clear to him why he spent so little on it. Betty leaves in a huff and Hank asks her what she thinks about this, but she only asks him not to ask her about such things now. In the evening, Hank locks himself in his room again, starting the Spendthrift System. Hank reflects that even though they didn't have much luck today, he still spent a lot of money to get enough points. Thanks to today's spending, the system increases all of Hank's indicators by 7, raising his level to level 2. The system also notifies Hank that he can now transfer his soul into the body of a small animal weighing up to 20 kilograms and control it. Hank is surprised that this system has such amazing abilities and decides to try it out right now. Hank ponders whether there is an animal in this house that can be possessed and decides on his mother's cat. Having established control over the animal, and realizing that he can really control it and see through its eyes, looking around he notices that Betty is approaching him and decides to check how she behaves. Betty approaches the cat and, unsuspectingly, begins to affectionately stroke his head. Hank enjoys the sensations, admitting to himself that before he didn't particularly like cats. However, having looked at his charming bride from a new angle, he adds that perhaps now he will reconsider his position on this matter. A few days later, Luo comes to Hank, sitting in the newly acquired hotel, and says that he has received an invitation. She adds that the sender is the girl group director Isabel, to which Hank says that he won't be so easy to convince him to spend $30 million. Luo tactfully adds that their hotel has lost popularity among guests, but they continue to operate in the red. Betty says that she used to not care about the stability and profit of this hotel, but recently she realized how much they spent it, and asks Hank if he has enough money to compensate the group. Hank irritably argues that this group is already on everyone's lips, and most likely will be able to lead the entertainment industry, but they were hidden by a scumbag director whom no one can contact. Betty notes that their popularity, however, has plummeted, and all articles involving them have been suppressed, adding that she feels like they were banned from joining. Hank says that since their boss is so dismissive of this group, he will take them under his wing himself, adding that he will definitely achieve this. However, from Hank's point of view, he still has no idea how to win the negotiations. Betty tells Hank that there are many different ways to negotiate. Hank looks at her questioningly, and she explains that you can simply find dirt on your opponent. Evening comes, and Hank decides to visit a company that prohibits Isabel's group from conducting public activities. The driver takes Sam to the entrance and asks him why he thought it would be a good idea to break into someone else's basement late at night, additionally wondering why he brought his mother's cat with him. Hank replies that it will be difficult for him to explain this right now, and asks him not to be distracted and wait here for a while, to which he calmly replies that his word is law to him. Hank concentrates, creating a mental connection with his cat, taking control of him. Having become accustomed to the cat's body, Hank jumps out of the car window and lands softly on his paws. He remembers Betty's words that all people have some dirty secrets, so if Hank can find him, then the negotiations will be much easier. Hank reasons that the cat's body will allow him to get into the director's office, adding that he'll be surprised if he doesn't find anything. From his point of view, thanks to this form, he will be able to penetrate into places where an ordinary person would never be able to go. However, the first obstacle on his way is the weight of the cat, which can hardly crawl through the windows. However, after trying hard, Hank manages to overcome the barrier and enters a dark corridor. Thanks to his cat's night vision, Hank easily finds his way around and decides it's time to find the director's office. After some time of persistent searching, Hank discovers that the director's office is on the floor above. Jumping, Hank successfully hits the elevator call button with his soft paw. Having reached the desired floor, the main character continues to carefully explore the dark corridors of the company. After a while, Hank successfully finds the desired office and looks around for guards. After making sure that no one is around, Hank notices that the front door to the office is unlocked. Carefully approaching the slightly open door, Hank looks into the office, discovering that the inside is empty. The main character goes into the office, rejoicing at his unprecedented luck. Jumping onto the office desk, Hank is surprised that no one is guarding the boss's office. After looking around, Hank finds the main computer and is already looking forward to a quick victory. Finding the computer's power button, Hank presses it with a soft paw. However, unfortunately, the computer turns out to be securely protected with a password. Hank desperately asks himself how he will find dirt on his boss without a password, believing that most likely this plan is doomed to failure. However, suddenly, thanks to the cat's keen hearing, he hears a very strange sound. Hank realizes that this strange sound came from the office, since the cat's ears and eyes still belong to him. Hank concludes that for some reason, there are still people in the office at night. Deciding to scout out the situation, Hank carefully jumps off the computer desk. Approaching the source of the sound, Hank begins to distinguish from this noise a female voice, languidly asking someone to stop touching her. Coming closer, Hank notices that late at night the director of the company decided to have fun with his subordinate. Hank thanks the cat for his incredible luck and chooses the most suitable position to conduct surveillance without being noticed. Having chosen a position, Hank remotely activates the camera mounted in the collar. The next morning, Hank gives Luo a flash drive with a video recording, asking him to give this video to the director with the words that he would break the contract with Isabel's group. Otherwise, everyone will see this video, adding that now they can win the negotiations without paying a penny. Betty asks Hank what kind of video there might be, since it will allow him to negotiate with the director without paying a penny, to which Hank replies that there is a very exciting video there. Betty asks Hank what the video is, adding that she is very interested, to which the main character replies that he will tell her about it if she calls him her hubby. Betty turns away embarrassedly, saying that if this information is secret, then she will not pry it out. Hank decides not to torment his betrothed, telling her that the videotape contains evidence of intimacy between the director and the wife of his brother, who is a more influential person in the industry than the director of the company. Betty asks Hank in surprise how he found out about this, to which he replies that he has his own methods. After some time, the director of the company becomes incredibly furious at the incriminating evidence he saw. The director is interrogated by the head of security, asking him how they were able to miss such an event, to which the guard replies that they checked the surveillance cameras and did not record anyone except an ordinary cat. The director asks the head of security whether he really wants to say that a cat entered the office and tried to turn on the office computer, and at the same time filmed it, adding that cats are not capable of such abomination. He orders his subordinate to burn the contract of Isabel's group, adding that they would go to hell. He also asks his subordinate to find the one who decided to blackmail him, threateningly declaring that this is not the end. This evening, at the opening of the 3-star hotel, the most beautiful fireworks begin to be launched in anticipation of the concert of Isabel's group. The invited spectators tell each other that they did not know that the group Chasing Girls would be performing at the opening, adding that they are very excited. After some time, Isabel and her partners take the stage, causing thunderous applause and applause. Isabel says that they will have a mini concert today, adding that they will not regret coming. Hank approaches the balcony and watches with interest what is happening from afar. Betty approaches Hank and hears everyone in the crowd saying that they are not particularly interested in the hotel, and they only came to look at Isabel and her group. Betty tells her betrothed that his idea is not very effective in saving the situation, since this hotel has completely lost its reputation. Hank asks Betty what could be difficult about restoring the good name of his hotel and calls his secretary Luo. Luo asks Hank what he wants to offer, to which Hank says that the hotel should throw a 3-day banquet for the guests at their expense. Betty notices that Hank is spending money again, adding that this is a 3-star hotel, so groceries won't be cheap. Hank replies that he just likes to spend money, adding that a banquet doesn't necessarily require high-quality food. Meanwhile, the audience begins to wonder where Isabel and her band have gone, asking when the concert will start. The host comes on stage and says that it is late and the audience is probably hungry, adding that as payment for today's enthusiasm, all guests are invited to a 3-day banquet located in the backyard, which will be held at the expense of the hotel. Guests are surprised by such generosity and say that some restaurants on this street also organize such a banquet, assuming that they had the same owner. Suddenly, several heavy figures appear behind the guests and order everyone to give them way. The strangers introduce themselves as the Fat Guo brothers, saying that if a free 3-day banquet is announced here, then they are obliged to come to it. Other guests say in horror that this hotel has come to an end, since these brothers have an incredibly brutal appetite and are very picky, and if they don't like the food, they can destroy everything here. The host calmly replies that they have no problems with such guests, adding that the hotel owner has provided for everything. He invites all the guests to the hotel, offering them a good meal before the next concerts, and the guests joyfully enter the hotel. Upon entering the hotel, guests are greatly surprised by what they see, briefly freezing in place. Guests will find that the main room is home to many small culinary tables, where chefs serve delicious food. The presenter says that today, they present the best dishes at the hotel's expense, cooked over an open fire, adding that guests have the opportunity to cook their own food. Guests approach the food, inspecting it with interest and saying that these things don't look much like barbecue. The fat Guo people say that they don't care, since they are terribly hungry and greedily stuff the dishes on the table into their mouths. Having tasted the dish thoroughly, the fat people say that it is an incredibly tasty delicacy, adding that it is as if they have returned to childhood. Guests, greatly impressed by the high rating from such gourmets, decide to try it too and begin to eagerly approach the tables. Hank, watching everything from the balcony, is happy to note that he finally managed to return the hotel to its former glory. Betty also decides to try the barbecue and notes that it is incredibly tasty. Wondering where Hank got such knowledge of cooking, Hank mentally notes that life without barbecue is like life without a soul, so he couldn't help but offer such a great dish to the guests. In the evening of the same day, Hank again decides to check the status of his profile in the system and updates it. Thanks to the money spent, the characteristics of the main character increase even more, making him stronger. Hank's meditation is interrupted by a knock on the door, and Betty's voice answers his question about who came to him. Quickly draping the robe over his body, Hank unlocks the door, telling Betty she can come inside. Having opened the door slightly, he asks his betrothed what she might need at such a late hour. After carefully examining Hank, Betty confidently declares that he is not the real Hank Daly, greatly surprising him. Betty says that Hank Daly was a complete idiot, while the main character asks her who she thinks he is then. Betty comes closer to Hank and places her hand on his chest, saying that he is obviously a fake. With that, Betty presses down hard on Hank, causing him to fall onto the soft carpet. Betty sits on Hank, and he asks her in surprise what she's up to. Betty says that everyone knows that Hank Daly is a stupid and sick-headed fool who invested money without thinking at all. But now Hank has begun to calculate everything down to the smallest detail, concluding that for these reasons, she believes that Hank is fake. Hank says his dear wife was the one who told him what to invest in, adding that she was the one who told him to buy the restaurant, save the band, and allowed him to expand the hotel. Betty says that she only increased the capital invested, adding that this is not his merit at all. Noticing that Hank is reaching out to her, she intercepts it and continues to say that Hank himself made decisions about the purchase of certain assets. Hank adds that if she's going to spend more money, she might as well just call him, adding that he trusts her eyes more than his own. Betty looks at Hank carefully and stands up, saying that he can sing very sweetly. As she leaves, she says that they are going shopping tomorrow, and Hank quickly and confidently agrees with her. The next day, Hank and Betty go shopping, but due to the main character's residual health problems, they are forced to take a short break. Hank takes out the lunch he bought, saying that he is sorry that he cannot walk for so long, to which Betty replies that physical activity, on the contrary, will be useful for him. Hank offers Betty a hot sandwich, but she refuses, looking away. Hank decides not to get his betrothed and calmly stuffs the snack into his mouth. Suddenly, Betty takes his sandwich from Hank and walks away a few meters. Hank, upset, asks Betty what came over her, adding that he just wanted to get a little snack. Betty approaches the stray dog and gives the sandwich to her, saying that this baby probably hasn't eaten for a long time. Hank sadly tells Betty that he hasn't had time to eat another bite. He begins to think about where he can buy himself another sandwich, when suddenly an expensive car stops next to them. A man gets out of the car and arrogantly asks Hank whether young Mr. Daly really cares about food even for a poor dog. The man, accompanied by the girl, adds that if Hank likes food for dogs, then he will give them a couple of set meals for shaggy dogs. Hank contemptuously studies the man who came out of nowhere, mentally noting that he doesn't like him at all. Noticing Betty sitting nearby, the man asks Hank if she's his fiancée. The girl accompanying the man politely greets Betty, saying that she is very glad to meet you. The man says that Betty is a member of the Tang family and was supposed to marry Jonathan Daly, but has now switched to the younger one, adding that she is a cutie, albeit pitiful. With these words, he turns his gaze to his companion and says that she is still far from her, calling her cousin. The cousin ignores his greasy compliment, telling Hank that a family meeting will be held in 2 months, asking him if he is ready. But the man does not allow him to answer, saying that Hank cannot be ready for anything, because he only deals with buying stuff and even show up to the meeting without money. Hank decides that he has heard enough and carefully examines his companions. He asks them who they are in order to interrupt their meal, adding that he is seeing them for the first time in their lives. The man asks Hank what pills the doctor prescribed him since he couldn't recognize them, telling his cousin that he did it on purpose because he didn't want to say hello. Hank turns to his betrothed, asking her if she knows these people, to which she asks him in surprise why he doesn't remember his relatives. Hank sarcastically replies that he is not Hank Daly, so he cannot know them. The man replies that he will remind Hank about everything, since he forgot about everything. He reveals that his father is Hank's father's fourth brother, and he is Hank's cousin, adding that he is the dream of 1 billion girls due to his unmatched beauty. He also introduces his companion, saying that she is a member of the Fenjong family named Lucy, adding that she is new to the world of business, and he accompanies her shopping to then feed her at a prestigious restaurant. Hank listens half-heartedly to his cousin's words, asking Lucy if he's being too clingy, adding that she seems very tired of him. Hank's cousin loses his temper and angrily tells him to mind his own business. Hank ignores his cousin and asks Lucy to tell him about the upcoming meeting, adding that due to his illness he was bedridden and his memory was slightly damaged. Lucy replies that the family meeting is held once a year, and its main task is to evaluate the achievements of family members for this year and the distribution of resources. She adds that at each meeting, 3 family members are chosen to give them the appropriate support and funds, and Hank becomes interested in this by asking how much money is given to the winner. Lucy replies that the most worthy is given 1 billion yuan. Betty and Hank are very surprised by what they hear, not believing that it's possible to get such large finances. Hank realizes that if this money is used for the Spendthrift System, his level will skyrocket. Hank's cousin says that the main character wouldn't even think about it, since right now the cousin is developing in the entertainment industry, making incredible profits, adding that he recently bought out a food delivery company and hired a bunch of drivers to work for him all day and night, bringing him a net profit. Mentally calling his cousin a moron, Hank politely thanks his cousin, saying that now he knows what he needs to prepare for. Hank's cousin says that Hank doesn't even need to prepare because if he takes any place, it will be an incredible miracle, telling Lucy that it's time for them to get out of here. Approaching the dog, he kicks it, shouting and ordering it not to get in the way. The dog grins angrily at its offender and decides to take revenge on him for such impudence. She lunges at cousin Hank and bites his thigh, tearing his expensive clothes with her teeth. The cousin runs away in tears, but the dog decides that her revenge has not been fully accomplished and sets off in pursuit of him. Hank, Betty, and Lucy watch everything that happens and conclude that he himself is to blame for what happened. After some time, Hank and Betty return and decide to take a walk in the garden of the city park. Hank enthusiastically says that $1 billion as a reward sounds like a lot, and Betty asks him why he wants it so much. Hank looks questioningly at his fiancée and asks her what the big deal is. Betty replies that everyone dreams of getting $1 billion for free, however, in her opinion. There is a problem that Hank cannot solve, saying that last year Lucy took 7th place in this meeting, having made considerable efforts. Betty clarifies that Lucy invested her father's $20 million in startups, opening 3 5-star hotels, 5 private clubs, and 11 chain movie theaters in just 2 years, generating over $90 million in revenue, and even still only finishing in 7th place. Hank says it's incredible, lamenting that he only has a couple of restaurants, 1 hotel and a band, so he'll have to give up even trying to get there. Hank says they'll have to forget about it since there are only 2 months left, suggesting they get back to shopping. Suddenly their attention is attracted by the loud barking of a dog and the screams of people. Turning around, our heroes notice how animal control officers are catching another stray dog with a net. Betty yells at the employees to stop and explain what the hell they are doing. The employee calmly tells her that they just received a report that stray dogs are biting people all over the place, so they were sent to investigate. He adds that they are sorry for the animals roaming the streets, but they cause a lot of trouble if they bite someone. Betty asks the employee where they are going to take the dogs after they catch them. The employee says that, unfortunately, there are no such shelters in their city, so they keep these dogs for a couple of weeks, hoping that someone will decide to shelter them. However, according to him, if this does not happen, then they quickly deal with the remaining dogs. Betty excitedly asks the employee what he means by these words, but quickly guesses herself. Turning towards the dogs, locked in a cage and pitifully saying that she feels very sorry for them, she takes Hank's hand and asks him to help these poor animals, saying that it hurts her to watch it. Hank says that if he had not seen it in person, he would not have believed it. But when he saw how the poor animals were trembling right in front of them, doomed to die, he also could not leave it just like that. He asks Betty to provide everything to him, saying that he will pay for shelter for these homeless animals and provide them with a roof over their heads. Betty clings to Hank, saying that he did a great thing and lovingly praises him, to which Hank asks her in surprise why she reacts this way. Betty replies that she is happy that Hank is such a generous person. Hank accepts Betty's compliments with a little embarrassment, but decides not to mind and smiles contentedly. After some time, they find themselves in an unknown place, and Hank tells Betty that he has decided to buy this land for a shelter, since it has been ownerless for many years. Hank says that he spent 10 million on this land and invites Betty to transform this vacant lot into a shelter. Hank notes that he again spent his earned money on this project, telling Betty that from a financial point of view, it is not the right decision. Betty says that he spent the money for good, adding that he did it at her request, to which Hank replies that if he managed to make her happy with the money, then he will consider this investment a success. Betty enthusiastically says that Hank spent a lot of money on buying a vacant lot just to please her, adding that he is an incredible person. Hank says that if he suddenly starts running out of money, he will certainly earn more, to which Betty replies that she willingly believes him. The young couple's flirtation is interrupted by Luo, who tells Hank that two people want to meet with him to discuss the price of collaborating with Isabel's group to create the soundtrack for the film. Hank turns around and listens to Luo's words with interest, sensing a lucrative deal approaching. Having finished their business, the main character and Luo go to Hank Daly's hotel to conduct business negotiations. One of the negotiators eats barbecue from the hotel restaurant with great appetite. He says that this barbecue goes well with beer, wondering how Hank managed to come up with such a thing, adding that he had previously heard that Hank was a brainless spender. His partner says that there is nothing smart in this, since everything here depends on the artists who go to such restaurants, clarifying that the only thing they need here is to make a deal with Hank. The man tells him that he is right, adding that they will use it when they find a group to record the soundtrack, after which he says that he will reduce the price since Hank is a newbie and knows nothing about it. Their business conversation is interrupted by the creaking of doors, from which bright light from the chandeliers pours onto the men. Luo and Hank emerge from them and the secretary introduces the main character, apologizing for the delay. A man with glasses stands up and greets the heroes, introducing himself as Dong Shen, saying that he is the music director of the Penghang Film Company, after which he says that his partner is a famous director named Dean Harrison. Dean Harrison smiles sarcastically and says that he is very pleased to meet Hank and Luo. Having carefully examined Harrison with his eyes, Hank comes to the conclusion that he is definitely not a good person. He invites his guests to follow him and invites them into his office. Dongshen says that they are currently preparing to film the film Wind Hunter, and the soundtrack from a popular girl group could create a sensation. He hands Hank the script for the film, saying that the most famous screenwriters have been working on it for 3 years. Hank studies the script carefully reading every line in it. After a while, he asks his guests about the film's expected box office receipts. Dean Harrison says expected collections are at least 15 billion yuan. Hank continues to study the script, asking them how much they want to buy the film's soundtrack for. Dongshen says that their price is 500,000, adding that they can add 500,000 on top if Hank wants. Hank throws the script on the table and says he will consider their proposal, wishing them luck in their endeavor. Dongshen asks Hank why they can't settle everything today, adding that 100 million yuan has already been invested in the film, which is the greatest investment in the history of the industry, and then asks Hank if he doesn't believe in his group. Hank replies that he is confident in his group, but doubts the success of their film, saying that they expect to earn 1.5 billion from the box office with a dubious script, which means that investing in their film may be money down the drain. Dean Harrison tells Hank that he shouldn't look down on them and advises him to check the box office of their previous projects, adding that Chasing Girls is popular because of their songs and not Hank, who is a non-entity. Dong Shen asks Harrison to calm down, saying that they are here primarily for business negotiations. Hank says he's seen some of Harrison's films, but he couldn't finish any of them because they had poor plots and poor special effects and acting. So if his band recorded the soundtrack for their film, then she may lose her popularity. Dongshen says that Hank is behaving inappropriately since they came here for a business meeting. But after all that has been said, further negotiations become impossible. With these words they leave, and Dean Harrison tells his comrade that Hank knows nothing at all about art and does not know how to praise worthy people. Luo tells Hank that Penhang Film is the most successful company at the moment and asks him if he is sure that he does not want to cooperate with them, to which Hank replies that they are too arrogant due to low competition, and if such a film were released in his world, it would undoubtedly be considered terrible. Luo asks Hank what he means by his world, to which he replies that it is nothing, and gives her a list of people, asking her to contact them, explaining that it contains old-fashioned movie stars, technicians, and martial artists, with unknowns to the public talents. Luo carefully examines the list and asks Hank what he plans to do with all these people. Hank replies that he decided to make his own film out of curiosity, so he needs a team. After some time, the scene shifts to the shooting of an unknown film. A man with theatrical tragedy asks a woman not to leave him, to which she replies that she has been in love with another for 3 years, so he should let go of this situation. The man, with sadness in his eyes, replies that he is incredibly shocked by this, and is very sorry that this happened. Suddenly the filming of the take stops and the director angrily shouts at the actor, He asks the actor what the hell he is doing, saying that at this rate he will ruin the film. The director says that the character should be emotional, but the actor plays as if he has a stone instead of emotions. Poking his fingers at the other actor, he tells him to show him how to play. In the next take, the replacement actor displays an incredible range of emotions, genuinely crying with grief. He pours water on himself and, frankly overacting, gives a tirade about how he will never be able to love another girl. The director points to the actor's performance and says that this is exactly what is called acting, adding that if the second actor had not been underpaid, he would never have hired him. Suddenly, the actor's phone rings and he decides to check what they wrote to him. The director rudely pulls the actor back, telling him not to dare to be distracted by useless things while he is talking to him. Having read the message in full, the actor exhales with relief and looks contemptuously at the director. With these words, he pushes away the annoying director and tells him that he is quitting. That same evening, a film screenwriter is hard at work in a tiny apartment. She throws out another draft, saying she spent 3 days and 2 nights rewriting the script, but it's still not good enough. In a work chat, they tell her that she has written herself off and is starting to worry too much about meaning. And the screenwriter says that she can no longer stand such a life. Suddenly, she receives a message on her phone, and she reads the message, which says that she has great talent, which can be very useful. She also notices that 1 million yuan comes to her account, and an invitation to come to the specified address. Meanwhile, in a country park, preparations are underway for the launch of a space rocket. The girl is doing the final touches, entering the correct launch parameters. The assembled onlookers admire the rocket and the girl with delight, but one of them says that the rocket is probably a dummy, and the girl is just posing for a video. The skeptic adds that if this rocket really flies, then he will eat the shit of a dog that is walking nearby. Having finished the preparations, the girl presses the launch button and the rocket engines begin to emit a loud roar. After a few seconds, the rocket takes off into the air and quickly flies out of the atmosphere, leaving all spectators in incredible shock. A few seconds after the successful launch, the girl receives a notification on her smartwatch, and she reads what was written in surprise. Deciding that she has received an extremely tempting offer, she gets on a motorcycle and takes off, heading to the specified address. As soon as all the invited guests arrive at the meeting place, they are greeted by Hank and introduces them to each other, saying that the ambitious actor with original ideas is called Luke, adding that due to the fact that he does not want a nurse on camera, he only gets small roles that are not let it shine. He also says that the woman screenwriter's name is Janet, and she wrote many excellent scripts, which unfortunately were stolen by other unscrupulous authors. Finally, Hank turns to a girl engineer named Stella and says that according to her parents and teachers, he is the weakest student, but no one notices her talent for inventing very interesting things from recycled waste. Hank says that their previous successes are not so important to him, since now he will be able to provide them with the necessary resources and creative freedom. He adds that together they can build their great careers, and his guests are a little embarrassed. Luke asks Hank what he means by starting a great career. Hank answers him by saying that his dream is to make a film. His guests are surprised at such a strange idea, to which he replies that he wants to make a film without following trends, without top actors, and without compromising the IQ of the audience, adding that he thought about this for a long time and decided that only they can help him in this matter. Stella replies that she likes his idea, however. Unfortunately, she is no longer a respected screenwriter, adding that Luke has no fans, and most likely, even if the filming of the film goes well, it, unfortunately, may turn out to be a failure. Hank says he takes on the worry of profit and loss, while his guests are not responsible for this, and are only required to participate. He asks them if she agrees to such terms of the deal, to which they enthusiastically answer that they are happy with everything. Hank says that there is a month left before the filming of the film and asks Luke to pump up properly in order to look better, since they will be filming Strong Guys, to which he replies that he will certainly complete this task. After this, Hank turns to Janet saying that he has several drafts for the script, but he leaves all the details to her, adding that she can write as she wishes. Finally, he turns to Stella, saying that her task is to create props, for which he will fully provide her with the necessary materials and provide clear technical specifications. After some time, Hank comes to Isabel saying that he wants her to play in his film, to which she shyly replies that she has never studied acting and can only sing. Hank says that he is not forcing her, and if she wants, she can miss this opportunity, but he will offer the same to her friends in the music group, since he no longer has candidates. Isabel says she agrees, adding that she will still tell her friends that Mr. Hank provides opportunities to play other roles. Hank says that she can consider the problem solved, adding that they are now sought-after newcomers in the entertainment industry, and he simply cannot help but provide them with a good script. Hank says that Dean Harrison will regret his arrogance, after which Betty comes up to him and tells him that he has worked for a very long time and suggests that he take a little rest. Hank responds that he is only getting angrier every day, saying that not only does he want to make a movie, but he wants to release it at the same time as theirs. And even if it turns out to be a failure, he will be obligated to expose it. Betty says she sincerely wishes him success in his endeavors, but making a film requires a lot of money, and he recently spent money on buying land for the orphanage. Hank says that even if he has no money left, he can find investors and dials his parents' number. Hank's mom picks up the phone and kindly asks him how he's doing, after which she listens to his request to give him $1 billion to make a film and says that she will definitely support him, adding that she will transfer him the necessary amount a little later. Hank's father asks his wife if she will really transfer such a considerable amount to him simply because he asked, to which she replies that she is happy if her son is happy. Hank's father replies that he trusts her decision, showing her that there was news in the newspaper that a city planning company had come up with a plan to urbanize a vacant lot in the east of the city. Hank's father says that someone has invested more than $30 million in the construction of a high-quality park, which means that the area will also be developed, to which Hank's mother says that this is an excellent business opportunity and invites him to invest. However, after reading the news further, they notice that this territory has already been bought for $10 million by none other than their own son, Hank. A month later, filming begins on Dean Harrison's film, Windchaser. Dean Harrison irritably asks why the leading actress didn't come to today's filming, angrily adding that the film has not yet been completed, to which Dongshen asks him to control his emotions. Harrison replies that the heroine, whom he considered an excellent actress, forgets her lines every day, and now she even dares not come to the set. Dongshen says that such arrogance is normal for top-level actresses, suggesting that they use a stunt double instead, and then substitute the necessary faces in the editing. Harrison stands up irritably and orders the crew to turn on the equipment and begin the take. He requires that the doubles be rotated several times from the desired angle, so as not to place a strong emphasis on their faces. He irritably thinks that he has been working in that industry for 5 years, and an attractive A-list actress is supposed to lead him to victory in the annual box office competition. Dongshen approaches Harrison and says that he just heard very surprising news. Dean listens to the news and is surprised that Hank Daly has decided to also produce his own film, to which Shen replies that Hank has always been a clueless prodigal son, and now he has started filming, using Isabel as a hostess. Harrison says that the last time he came to him was to ask Isabel for his film, assuming that Hank has now learned her value, and asks Shen about the cast and screenwriter of Hank's film. Don Shen replies that the male lead is being played by some newcomer to the industry, but the screenwriter is Janet Hendricks. Harrison asks Shen why he doesn't sue her with the help of a nationally recognized screenwriter, accusing her of plagiarism, to which he replies that she can easily win it. But he is still sure that Janet is untalented, so their film is doomed to failure. Dean Harrison says that even if Isabel doesn't turn out to be a very talented actress, it could definitely affect their box office, adding that he will talk to the director. That evening, he goes to a friendly meeting at the prestigious Lumao Hotel. All meeting participants propose to clink glasses and raise another toast to their meeting. The vice president of Penghang Film, Jordan Fay, tells Isabel's former boss, Brad, that he hasn't seen him for a long time and he looks very tired. Brad, exhausted, says that it was as if someone had jinxed him, asking him why he pulled him out of the work process. Dean Harrison says that his business in the city is also not going well, since half of the funding goes to an unknown actress, as a result of which he cannot devote himself as well to his work. Jordan Fay says his contract with Isabel is still valid, so if she were to star, the box office could be worth around $3 billion. Hearing the name, Brad asks Jordan not to say it, saying that this girl hurt him terribly, after which Jordan asks him what happened. Jordan says that Hank Daly lured her away, and Jordan listens to him in surprise, mouth agape. Brad says that the damn boy found out about his love affairs and forced him to give Isabel to him, adding that he even compensated him for the losses, and now he cannot fight him. Dean Harrison says Brad is giving up too early because everyone can be dealt with. Harrison asks if he has any dirt on Isabel, adding that if he creates a scandal around her name, they won't need to make much effort for revenge. Brad replies that Harrison's proposal is very reasonable, since a pathetic girl like Isabel will not be able to oppose him, while he will be able to release his anger and make her regret it. Harrison is happy that he managed to get influential people on his side and mentally rejoices that now he will definitely ruin Hank's film. After some time at the hotel, Daly begins an interview with the creators and participants in Hank's film. Hank and the entire crew stand on the podium, posing for a large number of photographers. Hank tells reporters that the famous Isabel will play the main role in this film, hoping that it will become a sensation in the world of show business. Photographers are actively clicking their cameras and talking among themselves, trying to find out the past achievements of the film crew. Focusing their gaze on Hank, they are surprised to note that they have not seen him in the entertainment industry before. Additionally, noting the extraterrestrial beauty of his wife, who could easily be confused with an actress. Betty asks Hank if he is sure he wants to be a director, asking him not to waste Isabel's popularity. Hank says that he hopes for the help of his dear wife, to which she tells him that she will definitely help, adding that they have a very strong rival, so they will have to come up with something new. Hank tells Betty that even if he fails, it won't be a big problem, since his inheritance is in the hundreds of millions. Meanwhile, Secretary Luo approaches Hank and asks for a moment of his attention. Hank asks Luo what happened, to which she replies that employees of the Disney Park department want to set up a meeting with him to discuss issues of cooperation. Hank asks Luo if she would like to negotiate with them on his behalf, greatly surprising her. He adds that he needs someone who can help him run his business, saying that in the future she will become the general manager of the company, which means she has full authority to speak on his behalf in discussing business issues. Luo jumps up and down happily, telling Hank that she won't disappoint him and will definitely work hard. Meanwhile, Stella approaches Hank, telling him that she needs to discuss technical issues. She says that the thing he asked her to do is ready and asks him if he wants to try it in action. Hank is surprised at how quickly Stella completed her task and suggests they go outside to test her. Betty asks Hank what lifted Hank's spirits so much, to which he replies that she will soon understand everything herself. After some time, Hank, Betty, and Stella go into the backyard to test the new device. Stella places the device on the floor and begins setting it up. Having completed the setup, she turns her head towards Hank and Betty and asks them if she can start. Hank says he's ready, watching the small device closely. Stella presses the button and the device starts up, lifting the projector up. A second later, a huge monster appears in front of Betty and Hank, approaching them. Betty fearfully jumps into Hank's arms, telling him that she is very scared. Hank smiles and tells Betty that she shouldn't be afraid because he's not real. He adds that this is a holographic projection technology, adding that while the image is static, it can be projected in a way that makes the film more realistic and unique. Hank asks Stella how many projectors she made, to which she replies that she could only make 3 during this time, and Hank says that this is enough, offering her a price of $1 million for each piece for their film. The next day, filming begins, and in the first scene, civilians are running somewhere. Civilians scream for help, quickly running away along the roadway. They are chased by a huge monster, viciously showing off its toothy mouth. The townspeople try to escape by shouting pleas for salvation. The monster examines its potential victims and growls contentedly. Suddenly he notices 2 shining lights in the sky, rapidly approaching him. The townspeople also notice a strange glow and realize that electric hunters are approaching to help them. The hunters summon a lightning whip and wind blades and rush to attack the huge monster. However, after a second, Isabel loses her balance and begins to dangle helplessly in the air. The director commands stop, and Isabel shyly apologizes for her clumsiness. Hank asks Isabel if she's okay and if she's hurt herself. Isabel says that she is a little afraid of heights, so she was very nervous and asks for forgiveness. Hank tells her that she doesn't have to apologize since they can take a short break without any problems. After this, he is briefly distracted by Janet, discussing with her the details of the script and the lines of some of the characters. Isabel gets down to the ground and approaches Hank and asks for a moment of his attention. She says that she feels that her acting leaves much to be desired, and is worried that she will drag down the film's crew, asking Hank if it would be better to cast someone else to play her. Hank responds that he is pleased with Isabel's acting talents, adding that the role was written specifically for her so she can act more confidently, as if she were performing songs on stage. Isabel listens shyly to Hank's compliments, saying that she is still insecure. Janet suggests that Hank film the dramatic scenes of the film first so that she can quickly get used to her role, to which Hank responds that he really likes this idea. Finally, he tells Isabel that she's the first actress with whom his company has signed a contract, which means he will definitely make her a popular actress and singer, but she will have to gain more self-confidence. Isabel is encouraged by Hank's speech and thanks him, promising to work harder from now on. Later that evening, Hank retreats to his room again to update his Spendthrift System. Thanks to his improved performance, Hank strengthens his body to the point where he realizes he no longer needs the wooden cane. Hank says that he finally looks like a normal person, adding that according to current data, he could at least outspeed some Olympic champions. Betty knocks on Hank's room again, saying that something terrible has happened, so he quickly puts on a robe and asks her to come in. Betty shows Hank the tablet, saying that some anonymous person posted the news that Isabel is supported by a rich man, and she has a child abroad, adding that this news is now trending, and the number of views has exceeded 1 billion. She asks Hank what they should do, to which the protagonist replies that she should worry because he knows perfectly well who did it, and will definitely repay them. He takes the tablet and wonders who this anonymous person assumes is a rich man, suspecting that they mean him, to which Betty punches him on the shoulder and asks him how he manages to stay in the mood for jokes. Betty suggests calling the police, saying that Dean Harrison and Dong Shen from the Pengyang film are definitely behind this. adding that they are the only ones with a conflict of interest now. Hank says that this is too boring and suggests that they pretend they didn't hear anything and just continue making the movie, to which Betty asks him if he's crazy. Hank replies that she just needs to calm Isabel down and let her act in the film at ease, adding that such a scandal will only play into their hands. Betty asks Hank what he means by saying it will work to their advantage. Hank says that even if she calls the police to investigate, she will easily find out that this is fabricated news from some private media, and it will all end with them only clarifying their position of apologizing, leaving the instigators untouched. Hank says they need to let their competitors be more aggressive and eventually hit them so hard they won't get up. Meanwhile, internet users are doing their best to spread information, saying that they are now disappointed in their idol. Users come to the conclusion that all her popularity is ensured by her rich daddy, and they say that they will never listen to her songs again. The next morning, Dongshen comes to Harrison and happily reports that Isabel's black background is now on the list of the hottest search queries. Harrison replies that he also saw the news that she was recently in the film, but now her own fans are boycotting her, adding that now they don't like her. Dongshen says that even if she wants to sue someone, she won't be able to find the culprit, adding that Heng will now regret laughing at them when they kindly came to talk to him. Dongshen says that the situation will develop according to two probable scenarios, specifying that either Hank will give up when all the investors take their money, or he will still make the film, but the audience will ignore its release, and it will fail at the box office in the same way. Harrison says that Hank remains a prodigal son, since the second generation of rich people only knows how to spend money and doesn't understand anything about the path he embarked on. Meanwhile, fake news about Isabel's past continues to spread across the country, attracting the attention of more and more people. Everyone agrees that all this falls on the shoulders of Hank, who is the producer and head of the film crew. At the same time, on the set of the film The Hunt for Electricity, Isabel meets with Hank to try to explain herself. However, due to being unaccustomed to such a wave of hatred from ordinary people, she does not find the strength to say anything and begins to cry. Hank consoles her, telling her that she doesn't need to be sad because he knows it's not her fault, and asks if she trusts him. Isabel says Hank got her out of a bad situation before, so she definitely trusts him. Hank says that then she should listen to his proposal, which is that she puts the phone aside and never looks at it, and also moves into his house and sleeps in the room with Betty, and Hank, in turn, will take care of that there would be no more bullying from the internet towards her family. He adds that all he demands from her is to finish filming the film, and Isabel says that she will fulfill all his requests, asking him to help her find justice. Hank says that he will definitely sort everything out, suggesting that Isabel get some rest first. Meanwhile, Secretary Luo approaches Hank and says that she has found important data. Hank studies the reports and realizes that Brad is behind all this, after which he asks Luo to set up a meeting with him, asking him to tell him that he wants to return one thing to him. At night, Hank drives up to Brad's company building and the driver asks him if he's going to go there alone. Hank says he can just wait for him in the car, adding that he'll be back soon. Approaching the entrance to the building, he says that he is very familiar with this feeling, since he has already been in such situations. Coming out of the elevator, Hank finds himself greeted by a whole bunch of beefy security guards. Hank says he's impressed by the impressive welcome ceremony and asks them if they're going to declare war on him. Brad lights a cigar and says that he has to admit to Hank that he was really looking forward to meeting him. He adds that despite the fact that they are seeing each other for the first time, he has never looked forward to meeting a person so much. Hank replies with a smile that, fortunately, he has met Brad before. Brad tells his guards that they will talk privately, ordering them to get out. The guards ask Brad if he is sure of his decision, to which Brad replies that some cripple cannot harm him. All the guards leave, leaving Hank alone with a gloomy Brad. Brad tells Hank to get straight to the point, adding that based on his message, he has something for Brad. Hank calmly takes out the flash drive and puts it on the table, saying that it contains the last copy of that video. Brad reaches for the flash drive, but Hank quickly intercepts it, taking it back for himself. Hank says that there is no need for such a rush, since they still have plenty of time to discuss everything. Brad mentally notes that Hank is not as simple as he seems, since he reacted quite quickly. Brad asks Hank why he is stalling, adding that he already gave him the group, so Hank is unlikely to come for the money, asking him if he has now decided to take his entire company. Hank says that no one is going to take anything from Brad, and he just wants information about something. Brad says that in this case, it won't be a problem, and says that Hank can ask whatever interests him. Hank asks Brad if the people he recently had dinner with are connected to the online harassment of his group. Brad annoyedly replies that they have nothing to do with it and demands the flash drive from Hank. Hank says that he knows that Brad and his friends have talked about it, suggesting that since they have nothing to do with it, Brad is the only one responsible for the bullying, to which Brad loudly states that Hank has no evidence of this. Hank says that he really has no evidence, and Brad, in a mocking manner, suggests that he hire an investigator. Suddenly, Hank invites Brad to find out everything for him, to which he, stunned, asks the main character if he has gone crazy, adding that he has no reason to help him. Hank says that the flash drive is not real and he still has the video in a secret place. Brad angrily yells at Hank and calls the guards into the room. He states that Hank has crossed all boundaries, and if he does not give up this flash drive now, then he will not look at the status of his family and will not be responsible for himself. He adds that no one would suspect him if Hank accidentally fell down the stairs. Hank wearily says that Brad himself chose the difficult path, and he just wanted to know if his friends had anything to do with bullying, adding that in that case he would just give him the video. Brad laughs at Hank's words and orders his guards to capture Hank, claiming that a couple of naked photos of him will be enough for blackmail. The guards begin to approach Hank as Brad says he can't wait for Isabel to return so he can have some fun with her and then sell her somewhere abroad. However, Hank suddenly grabs his cane and stops the menacing guard, stopping the tip of the cane a centimeter from his throat. Brad angrily asks the guard why they can't even grab an ordinary cripple. Hank tells Brad that they'll take a look at who the clumsy cripple is here. Brad begins to lose his temper and angrily asks Hank what he wants. Hank says that he just needs an answer to a simple question, adding that he is sure that Brad is definitely involved in the bullying, but his target is those two. Hank adds that he, however, has no evidence and puts a piece of paper and a pen on the table. The main character asks Brad to describe how, where, and when they discuss bullying Isabel, adding that after he leaves his signature here, he will be free. Brad grins and says that he didn't expect a man with Hank's reputation to be such a treacherous guy. Then says that if he did everything according to his instructions, he would betray his friends, adding that Hank himself could write a confession about how he forced him to terminate his contract with Isabel. Hank replies that Brad is the last person who can lecture him, since no one forced him to have an affair with his brother's wife. Brad loses his temper and says that now Hank is in trouble, throwing his fists at him. Brad decides to knock Hank to the ground with a powerful kick, but Hank easily jumps back, holding himself on the back of his chair with acrobatic skill. Brad notes Hank's agility, saying that he turned out to be an ordinary person, and not a cripple. Hank replies that he recently found the immortality pill, and ironically asks Brad whether he believes these words or not. Brad says that Hank can at least be a cultivator, adding that today will be the end for him, and he won't care even if Hank's family bury him 3 times later. Screaming that this is Hank's last chance to get the video back, Brad attacks Hank. Hank still playfully dodges Brad's attack, saying that first he must get a confession from him. Brad says that if Hank continues to resist, then everything will be bad. Hank mentally says that he wants to test in practice how strong this body has become after being improved by the system. Brad breaks Hank's cane, saying that as a child he was a master of taekwondo, and since Hank is healthy now, he will not spare him. Other guards ask Brad if he needs help, to which he replies that they should not move, adding that he can handle this brat himself. With these words, he throws a powerful kick, but Hank easily blocks it. The guards say that now the boy has definitely come to an end, since with this blow, Brad left dents on the steel sheets, which means his legs will not survive this. Noticing that not a single muscle moved on Hank's face, they are surprised that he is not in pain, assuming that he is just not showing it. The guards begin to cheer Brad louder, telling him that he only needs to land one blow and Hank will be defeated. Suddenly they notice that Brad's face has twisted into a grimace of pain and wonder how this is possible, and what could have happened. The guards start running towards Hank, but Brad stops them, saying that he will deal with this himself. With these words, he gives up, saying that he didn't think that masters could be so young, adding that he gives up. Suddenly he pulls a large stun gun from behind his back and lunges at Hank, telling him to cheer up a little. However, Hank snatches the weapon from Brad with inhuman speed, greatly surprising him. Hank notes that it was quite a pathetic sight, looking at the dumbfounded Brad. With these words, he hits Brad on the back and asks him if he really isn't afraid of his family. After beating Brad, Hank after a while beats a confession out of him and Brad begs him to stop beating him, saying that he can give him a video recording of the meeting. Hank asks Brad interestedly about what kind of video he means, turning on the stun gun again. Brad says that after losing Isabel, he realized that he had to be more careful, so he began carrying a recording device with him, and on the day when they discussed how they could throw mud at Isabel online, he wrote down every last detail, so that in case of discovery his accomplices did not begin to deny everything. Hank asks Brad where the tape is and he replies that it is in his shirt pocket. Hank takes the flash drive from Brad's shirt pocket and says that this time he will believe him. As he leaves, he hears Brad say that when everyone finds out that he is involved in bullying Isabel, then everything will be over for him. Hank responds that Brad can rest assured that he is only targeting those two and adds that the fake flash drive was in fact the real thing. Brad listens to Hank in surprise, thanking him for his generosity. Mentally, he is surprised that Hank single-handedly burst into his territory and beat him like a child, and comes to the conclusion that he must remember Hank forever, so as never to anger him again. The driver meets Hank and asks him if he's okay, pointing out his fresh abrasions. Hank says he's fine and tells him to head home, adding that he can't wait to celebrate his victory. The next morning, Hank decides to look at the video recording of Dean Harrison, talking about his plan to plant incriminating evidence. Betty, watching this video with Hank, angrily says that she knew it was Harrison's doing. She adds that there are already 3 million abusive comments on Isabel's account, so they urgently need to deal with the instigators of the bullying and make them suffer. Hank says that he perfectly understands the feelings of his dear wife, but in his opinion now is not the time to strike back, since it would be better not to make a fuss and make them his puppets, proposing to slightly adjust the video for this. With these words, he turns to Stella and asks her if she can add something to the video. Stella says that this is possible, but if they decide to conduct a professional examination, it will immediately be revealed that it is a fake. Hank tells Stella that they won't decide to do this and will just take the bait right away. In a few days, the premiere of Chasing the Wind begins, with Dean Harrison in attendance. The interviewer greets the audience by apologizing that the film's lead actor was injured during filming and could not be here today, adding that the film's chief director, Dean, is their guest today, Harrison. She says it's time for questions, and asks Dean if the rumors are true that after the overwhelming success of a film called The Love of a Young Daughter-in-Law, Dean Harrison spent 3 whole years planning Chasing the Wind, to which Dean replies that this is true. He compliments his answer by saying that he was always sure that the success of The Love of a Young Daughter-in-Law was not the limit for him, and he always knew that he could do something more successful, and for this he had to go beyond the love drama, adding that we hope his new film is his best work and will please the audience. The interviewer replies that she is sure that it will be so, because in his films the actors in the main roles are superstars who are on everyone's lips, adding that the film's rich cast of talent pays for it even before release. Looking into the audience, the girl notes that there are quite a lot of people who want to ask the director a question, and chooses one of the spectators, asking him what he wanted to know. The viewer tells Harrison that she has been a fan of his work for many years, and even decided to become an actress under the impression of his films, after which she complains that as a beginner, she encountered many difficulties and does not know how to move on, adding that she does not want to sell her body like Isabel, and asks Harrison for some advice. Dean Harrison says he was asked a great question, and he knows that many people new to the business struggle and don't rely on rich producers to be honest, or they won't make it to fame. The audience applauds Dean Harrison's fiery response, saying that his thoughts are, as always, incredibly accurate. Meanwhile, at the premiere of Chasing Electricity, absolutely no one is there except Betty and Hank. Betty tells Hank that they have been sitting here for the 3rd day and no one has come to them, despite the fact that the film comes out tomorrow, after which she adds that things have become even worse online, to which Hank replies that it is so, and it should be, because interest in this topic should not subside even for a minute. The main character says that tonight they will upload the resulting video to the internet and see what show will start after. That evening, Jordan Fay, Dean Harrison, and Don Shen celebrate the film's imminent launch, saying that critics are already excited and that huge box office revenues will not be long in coming. Don Shen happily states that there is a lot of talk online about this being Dean's greatest masterpiece, adding that because of Isabel's bullying online, movie theaters are refusing to show Hank's film in their theaters. Dean Harrison says that Hank deserved such a fate, adding that if he had been more modest, he might not have failed at the box office. Jordan says that Dean doesn't have to worry about it coming out, saying that even if they start digging under them, they will only find fake people. And even if someone gets to the truth, he will protect him, and he will remain the director through thick and thin. Jordan ambitiously declares that they will soon be able to take over the entire cinema in the country, and the trio clink glasses for their future success. Their victorious drinking session is interrupted by an assistant who bursts into the office with a laptop and says that this is an urgent matter. Jordan asks in surprise what could have happened so urgently, to which he invites him to look it up on his own and places a laptop in front of him. Jordan, Dean Harrison, and Don Shen look closely at the laptop, trying to understand what happened. Taking a closer look, they all freeze at once from severe shock. They watch a videotape of Dong Shen telling Harrison that Hank thinks too much of himself and plans to make a movie starring Isabel. Harrison tells Shen that it's not an easy task, but he knows a good computer guy who can mount something for them, adding that they can bury his reputation. He says that they will release a video online saying that Isabel is selling her body for fame. All three look at the video in shock, not believing their eyes. Dong Shen angrily asks what this is, clarifying that he never said these words, while Harrison asks to find him the author of this video. Dean Harrison contacts Jordan, saying that the video is fake and needs to be removed immediately, otherwise his reputation and his film will be over. Dong Shen says that they urgently need to call the police so that they can arrest the author, suggesting that Hank Daly is behind it all, Jordan interrupts his companion's panicky hysterics and orders them to shut up. He says that the video may be fake, but a similar conversation definitely took place, and if they start digging, the original recording may also surface. So for the sake of the company's reputation, they will not do anything. Dean Harrison asks Jordan what this all means, accusing him of wanting to get away with leaving Harrison and his film in the lurch, adding that Jordan was the one who started it all in the first place. Jordan replies that there is neither Jordan nor evidence against him in the video, and angrily tells Harrison and Shen that they will not be able to drag him down with them. Dongshen and Dean Harrison look at their former comrade with surprise and undisguised anger. Meanwhile, the published video begins to spread across the internet, and viewers begin to realize that they have been deceived all this time. Heated discussions begin on the forums that Dean Harrison specifically began to harass Isabel on social networks in order to prevent her film from being released. After this, people decide to watch Hank Daly's film and line up in huge lines for the premiere.